Donald Trump's determination and belief in this tariffs policy, as you say, is completely scrambling things. Are we better off sticking close to China now?
He does tell you what he's going to do, and then he does it. So every time you sort of say, isn't it extraordinary that Trump's done X or Trump's done Y? Well, no, not really.
But why did you declare a trade war on the rest of the world? Why are you punishing your allies? And he seems to want to punish the European Union at times more than he wants to punish others. And he wants to punish Canada and he wants to punish Mexico. These are your nearest neighbours.
Air Force One is currently in international waters for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast.
With respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
Trump cars are shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump cars are number one.
In just 100 days, has Donald Trump irrevocably, fundamentally changed America's place on the world stage? Welcome to the Newsagents USA.
The Newsagents USA.
It's Emily in London.
And it's John in Detroit, where I was at Donald Trump's rally last night to mark his 100 days in office. Obviously, it was a victory lap. Obviously, it contained a lot of false assertions. And obviously, because it was a domestic audience, he didn't dwell too much on the rest of the world. But the rest of the world, by God, is feeling the impact of Donald Trump's presidency. And we played you that little montage at the top. Greenland, we could have talked about the Panama Canal. We could have talked about any number of issues, the tariff policy, the threat to international trade that Donald Trump has introduced. I would contest there isn't a corner of the world that hasn't felt the impact of the Trump presidency and the reshaping of institutions that is going to follow from the Trump presidency.
We talked yesterday and over the weekend about the effect that Trump is having on his allies, former allies. The effect of Trump on Canada is to send Canadians flocking against Trump to the Liberal Party. The effect that Trump seems to be having on Australia, we'll know after the elections on May the 3rd, is to send Australians flocking to support those who stand up to Trump. In other words, the left, Albanese's party in Australia. And we're even getting a sense of how that's happening with Xi Jinping. That's the most extraordinary thing of all, that he has been America's pariah up till now. He has been the outlier, the kind of enemy number one for America, the man who's sort of destroying America's economy by this, trade deficit, trade surplus. And yet now, Xi Jinping is the man who is adhering to norms, adhering to the world order. He's now going round Southeast Asian countries telling them that it's going to be all right, that they have to band together. He is creating a unity, an alliance against Trump. If you look at what's happening in our quarter of the world, where Starmer has been hanging on to hear what kind of deal they're going to get from Trump. And you have to wonder, when Keir Starmer is meeting with Europeans in London here next month, whether he's just going to think, well, that's a more reliable partner. That's a trade deal that they want to see happen. That's the obvious place for me to find growth for the UK economy right now. You suddenly see that Trump has Yeah, he hasn't just sort of entered into this world of self-sabotage for America itself. He's actually sent everyone else to realign themselves by kind of looking around the room and saying, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Maybe we're better off together, and we leave him on the outside.
And that is such an extraordinary position where America set the rules of the road for the world trading system, the system of tariffs, the World Trade Organization, the rules-based order after the Second World War, that has made America the wealthiest country in the world by a considerable distance. And yeah, China is coming up close, but Chinese GDP is nothing like US GDP. And I think that it is just sort of, Donald Trump's determination and belief in this tariffs policy, as you say, is completely scrambling things. Are we better off sticking close to China now? Donald Trump has legitimate complaints about the way America trades with China. But why did you declare a trade war on the rest of the world? Why are you punishing your allies? And he seems to want to punish the European Union at times more than he wants to punish others. And he wants to punish Canada and he wants to punish Mexico. These are your nearest neighbours who've been friends and allies of yours. And this is the stuff I don't understand. He's gone in and instead of using a sniper's rifle, he's used a blunderbuss to attack everyone, to fire spray shot at anyone and everyone. Yeah. And the markets have reacted, and it's reacted badly, and people are thinking, right, okay, America is in a different place now, whether it be over the economy, whether it be over national security, and people are recalculating what they need to do.
I mean, I guess 8 years ago, he spelled it out. He said this is going to be America first. And what did we do at that point? We all went back to the sort of 1930s analogy and wondered if it would be sort of American fascism, something that looked like American nationalism, American supremacy. And I think we spent a lot of time looking at the language around that passage from his inauguration speech in 2017. But in essence, the thing that Trump does, and you've really spelled it out, is he does tell you what he's going to do, and then he does it. So every time you sort of say, isn't it extraordinary that Trump's done X or Trump's done Y? Well, no, not really. He told us that he wanted to put tariffs on goods. He told us at one point during the campaign that he wanted to replace income tax with tariffs. He told us he wanted to put America first. He told us he didn't really like NATO. He told us that he thought European countries should be doing more to defend their own continent than America should. He told us that he thought America had been really badly and unfairly treated. And so I guess one of the questions we really have to ask is, well, what did you expect? Right? He set this out. It's nearly a decade old. Some of his policies, some of the rhetoric around his policies is 30 years old. So here we are in 2025, seeing a man who now has untrammeled levels of power precisely because he's now engineered it so those around him are not keeping him in his lane. They're letting him sort of drift around, crossing every single sort of 7 lanes of traffic in one afternoon. And they're letting him do it. And I guess when he turns round and says, this is what the voters signed up to, yeah, he's kind of right.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. But I think that the reaction now is, okay, maybe we thought it was rhetoric before, we now know it's real. Just take Russia-Ukraine, where, needless to say, Donald Trump has not brought peace to Ukraine on day one, nor has he brought peace to Ukraine on day 100. We've still got a Russia-Ukraine war. We've still got Russia piling its kind of drones and missiles into Ukrainian territory. So that hasn't been solved. But the consequences of it are being felt widely. European defence manufacturing is stepping up. No one wants to buy American goods anymore in terms of American weaponry, although it may be the best. There's sort of, do you need American permission to fire the missile? Could America immobilize your missiles if NATO is going to become a sort of, meaningless entity and Europeans will have to take charge of Western European defence? What happens to the relationship with Russia, where Donald Trump wants to completely normalise relations with Russia? And, so the idea of sovereign nation states, the whole basis of the United Nations, Donald Trump seems to be saying, well, might is right, and if Russia has conquered this land, it can have it. The consequences of this are going to be felt in the sense that, well, we don't have a Western European defence umbrella now. European nations are going to have to step up and do this stuff without America. These are major consequences. And, it's going to take years for this to settle down. But I think the traditional perception of America as this free trading nation, outward looking, is gone. And I think that there are profound implications for global institutions, whether it be the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, you name it, wherever you want to look. Trump is undermining America's place of leadership in the world.
Well, in the last few minutes, and I should say we're recording this at 10 to 3, we've just seen a story that says, this is from the Kyiv Independent newspaper, Ukraine is ready to sign minerals deal with the US. And this is a source from the president's office. We assume that means President Zelensky because it's a Kyiv news report. It says Ukraine is ready to sign the long-anticipated minerals agreement with the US, which could happen as early as today. And then there is an editor's note which just says this is a developing story and is being updated. In other words, something that we have learned very much to expect with the Trump administration is something might be absolutely 100% true 1 minute and gone the next. This is the minerals deal that, just to remind you, was part of Trump's effort to make Ukraine pay back America for the money it has spent on helping Ukraine to defend itself against Putin's dictatorship. So I don't know if we are happy just to say, well, that's a step forward. Is it a step backwards? Is this how the new order works now in sort of transactional? If you want to be secure, you have to pay us back. I don't know. I mean, is that where we're entering now?
Yeah, I think we are entering into a period of strongmen governments who have got their own backyards where they can do what they like, where people won't challenge them. And whether you're Vladimir Putin in Russia, whether you're Donald Trump in Washington, whether you're President Xi Jinping in China, you've got your own backyards. What would America do if China invaded Taiwan? I don't think it's imminent. I think that the Chinese are going to proceed very cautiously on something like that, but it's their long-stated goal that there should be Chinese unity. There was always the idea that they wouldn't do it because America would intervene and support Taiwan. Yeah. Would Donald Trump do that now? We don't know.
I don't think he cares. Yeah.
I don't think Donald Trump knows. Yeah. I mean, this is the other thing, is the unpredictability that we've now got in world affairs. It's not that Donald Trump has made decisions. It's for the moment Donald Trump thinks that, but he might think something different. Look at the messaging. I mean, you talked about Ukraine a minute ago. 1 minute he's had a conversation with Zelensky in St. Peter's Square at the Pope's funeral, and he's kind of much more sympathetic to Zelensky. He did an interview with ABC television last night and is asked, do you trust Vladimir Putin?
You think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
I think he does, yes. I think he does. I think
even with the raining missiles
I think he really, his dream was to take over the whole country. I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust him? Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
I am
And
happy.
then you start hitting me with fake questions. You start telling me that a guy whose hand is covered with a tattoo doesn't have the tattoo. You know.
All right.
I mean, you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not.
Let me
No,
just
I am
tell
not,
you,
sir.
do I trust? I don't trust a lot of people. But I do think this. I think that let's say he respects me.
All I hear there is President Trump unable to answer that very simple question. You know, what you want is the ABC interviewer just to say, I didn't hear you say that you trust Putin. And he never gets to the bottom of that. And it's interesting. I think I had something of a minor epiphany over the weekend where we had always joked about the fact that the person who kept going to meet Putin was not some diplomat or some ambassador. It was Steve Witkoff, who is, you know, Trump's Russia envoy, formerly a real estate mogul. And we'd always kind of joked about the idea of, like, really? Is the real estate mogul the guy that's going to go and deliver peace? Until it dawned on me that actually the chats that Trump wants to have with Putin are fundamentally not about Ukraine. They're not about peace. They are more likely to be about real estate. They're more likely to be about business deals. They're more likely to be about the lifting of sanctions. And once you reframe it, you realise that Trump has put in place people who are directly going to help him create more business, create more family business, create more personal wealth probably, rather than solve the geodynamics of warfare on the world stage.
Look, I think if we are going to mark a scorecard for Donald Trump on global affairs of the past 100 days, has he caused disruption? He gets 100%. He's caused massive disruption. But is there peace in Ukraine? No. Is there peace in Gaza? No. Has he managed to secure trade deals? No. Has he slowed the world economy? Yes. Has he got Canada? No. Has he got Greenland? No. Has he got the Panama Canal? No. He has renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. But honestly, I think that if you were saying, what are the legion of achievements of Donald Trump in these first 100 days on the global stage, I think it's a pretty meagre offering.
We'll be back in a moment speaking to his former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. We're going to hear now from John Bolton. He was the US National Security Advisor in Trump's first term, for a brief while anyway. He was pulled into the administration March 2018, and they fell out less than a year later, particularly when he found himself at odds with Trump over North Korea and Iran. Bolton supported a pretty hardline approach to both countries. And in September 2019, when the House of Representatives launched an impeachment inquiry against Trump, they considered Bolton a very important witness, but he didn't testify without a court order, and so the House didn't subpoena him. We never heard from him at that time. Since leaving office, he has become one of Trump's most vocal and bombastic, often, critics of Trump. And today, on the 100-day anniversary, I tried to ask him to put Trump in some kind of perspective for us. Ambassador Bolton, welcome to the Newsagents. I want to start with a quote from President Trump himself. He told The Atlantic, and he put on Truth Social, "I really believe that what I'm doing is good for the country, good for people, good for humanity." Is it possible, do you think, that he believes that? What do you think drives Donald Trump?
Donald Trump is what drives him. He says things like that because it's the politic thing to say, but his focus of attention is really very limited and centers on, in any given context, what will bring the biggest benefit for him. He doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't do grand strategy, really doesn't even do policy as we understand that. And so his decisions are almost entirely transactional and therefore very hard to predict.
If we start with foreign positions, there is talk as we record of a mineral deal with Ukraine. There is no concrete talk of a peace deal. The Kremlin has talked down any chance of that, saying the rapid progress that Trump wants is difficult to achieve. Your thoughts on whether it's possible?
Well, I think the mineral deal may turn out to be almost irrelevant to the extent Trump started off by thinking that deal would pay for all of the assistance we'd previously given to Ukraine, at least according to press reports. That's not in the deal at all. And if there's some aspect of compensation tied to future sales, I don't think that bothers me or Ukraine so long as Trump continues to make the sales available. If he were to cut it off, that would be a significant detriment to Ukraine. I don't think a ceasefire is likely in the near term, and certainly not any kind of peace deal. I don't think Trump understands that. He has said repeatedly, including in the State of the Union message, he thinks the conflict is senseless. That's his word. It's not senseless to the Ukrainians who think that they're fighting for their freedom and independence. And for completely different reasons, it's not senseless to the Russians who think they're recreating the Russian Empire. So if anybody understood that, you'd see that negotiating even a ceasefire is not a proposition you could do in 24 hours, as Trump said in the campaign, or as we now know, even in the first 100 days.
We're all trying to work out if he's actually had an epiphany over the weekend in Rome. Do you believe him when he says that he's woken up to the idea that Putin's playing him, tapping him up?
Well, I think it's a subject that's always on his mind, and I think it's a risk that Putin runs that he will overplay his hand. But no, I don't believe Trump has epiphanies. He got a great photo of himself knee to knee with Zelensky in the Vatican. Great photo. That's what he cares about.
But do you think that he sees Putin any differently now, or do you think he's essentially an ally?
I don't think there's any change in Trump's view. He believes he and Putin are friends. He believes the same thing about Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un. In fact, with Kim Jong-un, after their first meeting, he said, "We fell in love." That's not how any of those three view him, particularly Vladimir Putin, who is about as cold-blooded a political leader as I've ever seen.
He is panicking now, it seems, about tariffs, or maybe about poll numbers, or maybe about the markets. Would you expect his tariffs position to completely go? I mean, even on China?
No, I don't think so. I think he will try and find a way to declare victory one way or another, and then try and retreat behind that as the tariffs go down. I'm afraid we may be about to enter into a recession in the United States, which will have worldwide consequences. Just this morning, the statistics came out that showed the economy contracted 0.3% in the first quarter, which certainly surprised me. Maybe others were not surprised. The technical definition of a recession is declines in 2 consecutive quarters, so we've only got 1 to go. And I think that could have a profound political impact in the United States. The people who voted for Trump wanted relief from prices that they felt under Biden. They wanted a growing economy. They remembered the economy before COVID. They gave the presidency to Trump. If he doesn't deliver, the consequences, I think, will be swift against other Republicans.
It does seem that the Trump effect around the world right now is to bring people together against Trump, that the Liberals are winning in Canada, Australia could see a left win. Even Xi Jinping has stopped looking like a pariah leader and feels like he's bringing an anti-US coalition together in Asia now. I mean, do you see a sort of a regrouping of the order against Trump now?
Well, I don't see a regrouping against Trump or a new order. I don't think that's possible. But I think the reaction you describe is correct, and it underlines a very basic point. It's hard for people to understand this point, but I want to stress it again. Trump thinks about himself. He doesn't think in philosophical terms. He's not playing three-dimensional chess. He is personally responsible for the Liberal win in Canada. The Conservative was leading by 20 points in the polls before Trump started talking about tariffs. Trump didn't care about that. He won't care what happens in Australia. He doesn't particularly care what the people in Europe thinks. He cares about what he thinks about himself and what he hears about himself. And he doesn't have the wit to see that it's a bigger world than just what happens in the confines of the West Wing. This will come back to haunt him, but that's not how he sees the world today.
So if you were our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, he's been hanging around for a trade deal with the US, but right now one with the EU is looking more reliable, more relatable next month. If you were Starmer, would you get on now with an EU trade deal and move on from waiting for Trump?
No, I think the trade deal, the famous free trade deal between Britain and the United States post-Brexit, which is now in its 9th year of being born, should have been a high priority for the entire 9 years. It would be done by now if enough leaders on both sides had gotten it done. And in fact, Trump or no Trump, the United States is still going to be the most important economy in the world, the most innovative, the most creative, the one where economic growth is going to come. That should be the number one priority for Britain, notwithstanding its unfortunate geographic location.
But would you say then to Starmer, don't rush into anything with the EU because that's really going to piss Trump off?
Well, I don't know that this would rise to Trump's level of consciousness, but I don't think he's going to give the EU a particularly good deal. And looking out for number one in Britain's case means make the deal with Trump. You can make a deal with the European Union later. They crave anything to get Britain closer to coming back in, which I think would be a mistake for Britain. But it means Britain has more leverage in the negotiations with Europe than it does with the U.S.
I guess Donald Trump has, in the last few weeks, had plenty of opportunity to say that he was joking about invading Greenland, joking about invading Canada or reclaiming Panama. He isn't joking. He was asked that directly in a press conference. Do you think, for all the bluster about him hating foreign wars, we could see America at war under Trump with an ally?
I think there's zero chance of that. Look, he talked about Canada as the 51st state so he could call Justin Trudeau governor. It was about humiliating him. Well, Trudeau is gone. Now he's got to deal with Carney. And I think Carney's background in finance may convince Trump he's dealing with a serious person now, and he has to take him seriously. The talk about Greenland and Panama was certainly ill-advised, and the chances of it happening are zero. This problem of Greenland can be resolved by negotiation. I would be willing to take sovereignty of Greenland. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. But under the very well-known 1951 Defense of Greenland Treaty between Denmark and the United States, a lot is possible. During the Cold War, we had as many as 16 military bases in Greenland. I think this is a resolvable problem.
Sorry, what do you mean by resolvable? You said take control of Greenland through negotiation. You think that Greenland should be part of America? No.
No, I said I would be willing to take sovereignty. I think it would be in Greenland's interest. And by the way, Donald Trump didn't discover this. In 1868, Secretary of State William Seward, having purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867, offered Denmark that we would purchase Greenland. They turned him down, but the idea didn't go away. In 1947, Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million for Greenland. Unfortunately, they turned it down again. I'm saying that the strategic interest can be accomplished without taking sovereignty, but I think it would be a fine idea if the Greenlanders themselves wanted to do it, which Trump, in his inimitable fashion, has probably now made impossible.
If Trump tried to get around the 22nd Amendment to serve another term without congressional sign-off, what would be your response? I mean, do you think 2028 is a joke?
I think he is trying to distract from his other troubles. Constitution is very clear. He can't run for a third term. To be elected, you have to get on the ballots in enough states to get 270 electoral votes. And there are plenty of state courts around the country, not to mention the Supreme Court, where this would end up, would say, we don't read the 22nd Amendment as permitting that.
I want to try and understand something slightly more philosophical whilst we talk on this 100-day anniversary, because I guess the biggest question remains not what Trump is doing in office, but how he got back into office. What really allowed him back in?
Well, in the Republican primary in 2024, the campaign of Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, which many people thought would be the best alternative to Trump, never got off the ground. None of the other candidates caught fire. And so Trump ended up with the nomination. That was extraordinarily unfortunate. And then the Democrats had their debacle with Joe Biden, who was manifestly not competent to continue as president. They nominated Kamala Harris, who looked to most voters like Joe Biden, only maybe more left-wing. The United States is a center-right country. People may like that or not like it, but it's a center-right country. And they remembered the prosperity under Trump in 2019. They didn't like egg prices and gasoline prices under Biden. Kamala Harris could not separate herself from the Biden administration, and therefore Trump won.
Yeah, I'm not really talking about what happened in the election. I guess the more complicated question is what happened within the Republican Party. You've been serving Republican president since Reagan, and it looks to the outside world like your party has now been institutionally captured by MAGA, which doesn't happen without consent.
Well, I think too many Republicans have not stood up to Trump, but I'm hoping that will change soon. The flurry of polls around the 100-day anniversary uniformly showed Trump's disapproval rating 10 points or more underwater. And that's even before news that the gross domestic product declined in the first quarter. So I expect more Republican opposition in Congress because they fear for their electoral chances in November of 2026. But I would have to say also, where is the Democratic Party these days? Have you caught sight of them in Washington? I can't find them. They're almost invisible. They're a non-force in Congress, and that's a problem when the opposition party can't seem to open the door.
Well, let's talk about what's happening on the inside of the party. You've got Marco Rubio, or you've got Joni Ernst, or you've got Lindsey Graham fawning over Trump, saying he should, again, a joke, he should become the next pope. Do you believe that the Republican Party is beyond the point of no return?
No, certainly not. I think the day Trump disappears from the scene, the party will begin to snap back into what it remains, I think, at its base, basically a Reaganite party on foreign policy and a center-right party on domestic issues. Trump has a very strong and loyal base, but it's not even a majority of the Republican Party, let alone the country as a whole.
I just wonder, when you look back, when you look at 2019, the House launched an impeachment inquiry against Trump. You were a key witness. You refused to testify without a court order at that time. And I wonder if you reflect back on that and think, I had that opportunity and I regret not doing that now.
No, because it wouldn't have changed the outcome. The House Democrats committed impeachment malpractice, in my view, by confining their effort to the Ukraine issue, and because they failed fundamental politics. It requires a 2/3 majority in the Senate to convict an executive branch official who's impeached, and they threw that out the window at the beginning. They had a majority in the House. They impeached Trump, but the way they did it guaranteed the Senate would acquit.
But wasn't it bigger than that? Wasn't it about saying, I know Trump up close. People were dying to hear from you. You were a witness. You could have been part of the history of actually speaking out about Trump whilst he was in power.
The Democrats must not have wanted me very much because they never gave me a subpoena.
Do you regret not speaking?
No, I don't. Look, I was under an order from the White House not to testify at all. And under what we thought would be a subpoena coming, they subpoenaed my deputy, Charlie Kupperman. And so he was faced with an order from the executive branch saying, don't testify, and an order from the legislative branch saying, testify. So he went to the judicial branch to say, look, I'm an ordinary citizen now. And I've got the two competing branches telling me to do contradictory things, Mr. Court. What should I do?
Yeah.
And ultimately, the House withdrew its subpoena against Charlie Kupperman, and they never subpoenaed me. I'm not saying that the Democrats did it for purely political purposes, but they sure screwed it up.
I guess the point is, you can point the finger at the Democrats, and clearly party politics is going to be central to this. But what we are looking at now is a complete lack of resistance on any level to what Trump is doing now.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think the courts are doing exactly what we would expect them to do.
He's ignoring them.
He has not yet outright defied a court order.
He's ignored them.
He's playing fast and loose. He's playing fast and loose. We'll see what happens. I do not think he's an existential threat. The Republic is much stronger than Donald Trump. And I think, in fact, it's counterproductive to those of us who are opposing him to hear people say resistance is futile. Because when you say that, then you convince people maybe it is. I think the struggle goes on, and I think ultimately Trump will have a very unique place in American history as our worst president ever.
Look at what's happened in the last 12 hours. Amazon threatens or describes what it's going to do to help customers know the cost of Trump's tariffs. Trump makes a phone call. Jeff Bezos backs down. The whole story goes away. I mean, I don't know where you're finding this resistance now.
Well, I think it'll be very interesting to watch what other firms do, because I think that this was such a clear example of deference by the business community. I think it'll rebound against them, and we'll see more. I do believe we'll see a lot more resistance from Republicans in Congress for their own safety's sake. Just one example, 2 weeks ago, before the congressional recess, Ted Cruz, who had been very supportive of Trump after he lost the 2016 Republican nomination, gave a very strong statement against the tariffs. Look, the first 100 days, the news has moved in Trump time.
Yeah.
Trump is active 23 hours a day. The judiciary, as an example, doesn't move in Trump time. It moves at the speed it wants to move. Other institutions have to react. You can't write the end of the story after 100 days.
I guess it's very easy for Republicans to speak out against tariffs because that was tangibly damaging their pockets, not least. It was tangibly damaging the millions of the men who surround Trump. It's much harder when it comes to issues of human rights or issues of constitution or issues of the rule of law. And I don't hear people speaking out on that at all. Not in your party.
I think you ought to look around a little bit better. I think a lot of voices are coming out against them. I think
from the Republicans.
Sure, the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, the National Review, many commentators on the right. It takes a while. People voted for Trump 6 months ago. They're not ready to say that he's failed yet. But the proof will come, I think, in the next 6 months. We'll see what happens to the economy. And if the tariffs bring, as I believe economic theory and experience tell us they will bring, negative economic consequences, Trump will begin to suffer from it.
Last thought, you're not scared of what America's in for in the next 4 years then?
Of course not. The United States had a civil war in the 19th century with over 600,000 killed and wounded in the military conflict. And we emerged from it and became the world's largest industrial power. Donald Trump is a problem. He will cause enormous damage, but Donald Trump is no threat to the Republic.
Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
So yesterday on the News Agents, we brought you news that Jeff Bezos's Amazon was putting alongside its prices the additional cost of goods because of Donald Trump's tariffs as a kind of like almost like an additional tax that people were now facing. It was public service information for customers so that they know what the additional tax now they were paying. Donald Trump was apparently, inverted commas, pissed at Amazon. And we wondered how long it would be before Jeff Bezos would fold. The answer, one phone call.
Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
Yeah. So it wasn't that we were waiting weeks or days or even hours. I think we could probably put that down to a change of heart in mere minutes. And it is an extraordinary thing if you think about the implications, which is on the one hand, oh, it's hilarious. You know, these big tech bros all fold the moment they get one threatening phone call from Trump. And we should say that was on the back of what looked like a drop in share price for Amazon itself. But really, the implication of this is that Trump does not want you to see how much his tariffs are costing American consumers. And I would say this goes back to a bigger theme, which is what happens in darkness, right? What happens in darkness is that dictatorships tend to flourish because you disguise from people what is actually going on. You threaten people who want to expose it. You do not let people tell the story, expose it to sunlight. And that's essentially where we are now, that Bezos has rolled back. He won't be telling consumers what the tariffs are doing to the price of their goods. They might notice anyway. Of course, you know, they're going to see if prices go up, but they cannot directly attribute it to Trump's own policies. And that seems to me, for all this talk of freedom of expression and freedom of speech and telling it like it is, an absolute lie.
We also tend to think of these multi-squillionaires as all-powerful people, and the speed with which they bend the knee is just incredible. I was told something really interesting last night. A friend from Washington was saying that in the first term, you showed your fealty to Donald Trump by booking in to the Trump Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue for a nice long stay, and you wouldn't dream of staying at another hotel, and you would flatter Donald Trump about his hotel. The Trump Hotel is gone now. So what you have to do as a billionaire is you have to buy a property that is $30 million plus in Washington, D.C., where you can entertain and host people. And that shows you are serious about maintaining a relationship with Donald Trump. And apparently all these people are buying these multi-million pound homes just to impress Donald Trump, that they want to be close to him. So the billionaire bros are getting close and buying property. Must be great to be a top-end realtor in Washington, D.C. right now.
Yeah, the other way you can do it, if you're Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina senator, is by suggesting that President Trump is open to the idea of being the next pope. That is what he's just tweeted. This would truly be a dark horse candidate, but I'd ask the papal conclave and Catholic faithful to keep an open mind about this possibility! Of course, it's meant to be read in jest. But actually, the cravenness is real. The cravenness, the bended knee, the supplication, it's all there.
We'll be back next week. We will see you then. Bye-bye.
107 days. We'll be marking it for you. Bye for now.
The News Agents USA.